Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here today with Ted Gushue. Hi, Ted.
Sam, great to have you here.
Can you tell the audience sort of who you are and what you do?
That's a very good question. And it's been a very existential one in the past few weeks because much like you, I'm sure, everything that I would define myself as who I am has been thrown out the window.
Yeah, it's all gone.
As I find myself in one place for longer than I've been in 4 years. I'm a media consultant. I'm a photographer. I'm a car enthusiast. I'm not a car expert. I'm a guy who likes his Porsches. I'm a guy who likes to travel. I'm a guy who likes to meet people and tell their stories, ideally.
And if let's sort of dig back. How did you start out? How did you get into cars?
I've told this story many times. I grew up in a car family. My family, back before I was born, my father and my uncle and his father used to buy and sell, restore and sell crashed cars in the 60s and 70s. So you had, which I've definitely mentioned this bit before in other interviews and other podcasts, but I think what's still fascinating to me is that during that period, it was this kind of golden era of having access to these types of cars that were still quite expensive back then. You know, buying a Ferrari wasn't cheap, buying a Porsche wasn't cheap. But because of the way in which insurance companies were structured and in the way you would insure your car, if you totaled your car, you had to basically just sell the scrap to recoup some of the loss. And my grandfather was an engineer and a tinkerer and just an automotive enthusiast, and my dad likewise, and my uncle likewise, and they would just buy the coolest cars that were crashed. So, you know, Ferrari, what was the last one? The 330 GTC bought for like 3,000, restored, sold for 15,000, which back then was just an astronomical amount of money. The car's now worth 500 or something insane amount. Yeah. And I got all these amazing photos, which I can pull up on my phone at some point, of my grandparents' driveway and garage, which was just littered with cars, Lotus Europas, 27s, 27 RSs, like cars that were just kind of drunk idiots had wrapped them around the pole. They grew up outside of New York City. So we were in a suburb, a bit kind of like a Gloucestershire type region of New York, and a lot of wealthy people would come out the city, party for the weekend at their friend's country house, crash their car, and then my family would just buy the cars, and they knew how to fix them, and they would think I'm quite good at restoring them, and then they would enjoy them. So cars were just always part of my family's background. And then growing up, my dad's an architect, so we, like any kind of creative industry, you have bust and boom, and you have periods of great success and then periods of nothing. And so in between that, it meant that we never really had new cars because we didn't have like the credit history, or we couldn't like lease cars, you know. So we would instead have this whole backlog of insanely cool cars that at the time were just kind of rust buckets. So like gray market 84 Range Rover, with a hole in the floor. My car, the 76S, we're the second owners of that car, and we bought it for $5,000. Yeah. So it's nice. Like we just always had cars like that because we couldn't afford a new car. Yeah. So these cars they were enthusiast communities, but this is back in the days when a 250 GTO was a 5-figure, 6-figure car. You know, this wasn't a crazy time 20 or 30 years ago. So I grew up in a family that just valued great design, couldn't afford the new model. So instead would buy the back catalog, which in the weirdest way was the greatest gift because it exposed me to this whole world. But it was never told to me as anything other than, this is the car we have. Yeah. You know, no one ever told me it was exceptional to have these cars or exceptional to do this or blah, blah, blah. There was passion for the cars for sure. And we knew how to maintain them and everything. But it wasn't in the way that today owning a classic car is something a bit of like an identity statement. This was much more of transportation. Yeah. You know, 300 TD wagons, so the whole thing.
That's cool. That's cool. So then what was your first job in the car industry? Where did you go?
Well, no, my career is long and winding for a very short period. First, I've really only been professionally active for 10 years now, since I graduated school. So I'm 31. I left.
What did you study?
Finance. And then I had intended to work in finance but then 2008 happened, 2009 happened. No jobs in finance. My internships in finance they disappeared. It was just a very tough time for that industry, obviously. And I ended up interning at Christie's auction house because I had a minor in photography at school, so like a secondary degree.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd call them over here. And I essentially kind of BS my way into an internship there. Had an amazing summer learning about the art world, and then went back to school. Graduated, still no jobs in finance, so the degree was totally useless. And the only other skill set I had in school was DJing. So I was a professional DJ. Nice. I worked for Red Bull all throughout college, and then I moved to New York and was dating a girl at the time, and she got me a gig at this kind of.
How did you end up working for Red Bull as a DJ? Or did you just apply?
Red Bull had a whole collegiate circuit back then. So I would work for like a regional representative, and it sounds much more professional than it is. It was much more like Red Bull sponsored college parties.
Yeah.
And I was the DJ for
I remember the people walking around with like big cans of like the backpacks of Red Bull and stuff, and there'd be like Red Bull reps everywhere. Yeah,
it was somewhere in between that level of grassroots and like professional.
Yeah.
It was they just had Red Bull was trying to get everywhere. So, and they wanted to catch people at that collegiate age where your ability to consume caffeine is at an all-time high. So yeah, we just, I drove all over the East Coast DJing parties for them. Fun. And I got pretty good DJing. And then when I got to New York, I was the only thing I had because I didn't want to move home after school. I wanted to go straight to like the big city and try my hand. So I did that, and that took off. Did that for 2 years. Made really good money at it. Had a lot of fun. Totally ripped it for 2 years. Still coming down from that period, and then and met somebody who owned a consulting firm, kind of like a traditional management consulting firm, during that period, and he asked me to come work for him as an associate at his consulting firm. So overnight, I went from DJ at night to consultant with a suit on during the day, and was working for Dow Jones, NASA, and Arriva, which is I think it's the same company that makes the London buses, like an industrial company, doing leadership training for the corporate suite. And I was 22, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, but that was a very interesting period. It was about a year long. Then they asked me, they're like, now you should go back to business school, and because of my time DJing, I felt that I knew enough people. One of the best things you get out of business school is a network. If that makes sense. So I felt I had a network at that time in New York City that was probably greater than anyone could get at a business school. And I also just hated school. I had no interest in going back to school. Not that I hated it, I hated the simulation of school. I wanted real life. And so I did that. And then I went from there, instead of going to business school, a friend of mine took over a newspaper, the New York Observer, which is owned by Jared Kushner, who's the son-in-law of Donald Trump.
Okay.
Strangely. And then, I became a nightlife reporter, did that for a year in New York, and met 1,000 more people, and just had this incredible ride there for a year. And then one of the hotels I used to DJ at, the Soho Grand Hotel in downtown New York City, they were starting a kind of a magazine, online magazine, to market their hotel. And I said, well, fuck it, I'll do that. And so I took over that magazine that they were starting up. And then I did that. I ran that for a year and a half and hired all these old Vanity Fair writers and paid them cash on delivery to give me great, like, kind of behind the scenes stories of New York in the 80s. And then, which got a lot of notoriety, and then led to the founder of the Huffington Post, Kenneth Learer. He found out about me through Graydon Carter, who was the editor of Vanity Fair at the time. And then they set me up with Ken's son, Ben, who owned a media group called Thrillist Media Group. Thrillist, I think, has some presence over here. And then at 24, they wrote me a blank check to start my own magazine.
Sick.
So I did that. Yeah, it was very cool. And then, so within 2 years, I had a team of 16 under me, and 2.5 million users per month on this website called supercompressor.com. And then
what was that aimed at?
Do you know the website uncrate.com? Yeah. So we Uncrate was kind of our starting off point, and LC Agniel over there is a good guy, and we really liked what they were doing, but we felt that we could tie editorial to it while making the commerce a bit more interactive and trying to own a piece of the commerce.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do the fulfillment on the transaction, not just be like recommending you to buy stuff. So it was very of that age, it was very of the 2013, 2014 media landscape, trying to find content in commerce, much like Net-a-Porter and all these other websites, but it was aimed at guys. And so we really tried this, and we did pretty well with it. And then I was working 7 days a week, and really in an unhealthy place after that, especially in New York. It's very easy to work crazy hours and then party crazy hours and work crazy hours.
Do this endless loop.
Yeah, London's a bit kinder, I find, but the New York really kind of socially normalizes that kind of overworking culture. And then I had been working with Petrolicious.com to talk, syndicating some of their videos, and I just loved what they were doing, and I didn't know much about the people. And then I think I had to be out in LA for I created some reason to be in LA, flew out to LA, and had a breakfast with the founder, Afshin Bania, and because he liked what I was doing, and he was like, well, could you come and help me scale Petrolicious? And I was so burnt out with New York and so looking for a new challenge. I said, yeah. And I moved out there, and I had an amazing 2 years basically managing all their editorial projects for them and running that platform for them. The video was treated a bit separately, but they played together. And then, on a shoestring budget, we made that thing really big.
How do you go about like I can't remember when I first came across Petrolicious, but just vaguely came across it. Was like, oh, there's this thing out there producing it was all high level content that I could see. Yeah,
everyone was exposed to their videos. If you were a car guy, somebody forwarded you the 250 GTO video. Someone forwarded you that 250 TR video, the guy that made it by hand.
Yeah.
We all saw these videos and we were like, this is like Hollywood. It was 10x better than what anyone else was doing at the time.
And they all had a really nice feel.
They all felt like they came from the same people, and they were done very thoughtfully. Their formula, which has now been replicated many times over by many different places, was still at that time just no one could crack it. They couldn't figure it out because everyone would just they would see the budget as so insane to achieve that like Hollywood level budget or whatever. So what I think Petrolicious did very well, and I definitely think that they probably they burned a lot of bridges this way, is that they paid just DP day rates.
Yeah.
Which are very agreeable. If you've ever commissioned video, a DP day rate is kind of industry standard just to go shoot something.
Yeah.
And they would get these really great DPs who were in between bigger projects, could afford to go work for $1,000 a day or whatever it was, $2,000 a day. And so you could get that level's work out of it. And then on staff, they would have an editor that would edit everything to feel
the same. Yeah.
The same. So it was done like as a total passion project, no interest in making money. Just like, this is something that needs to be, just done out of love. And I think that really worked for them very well. They built a lot of industry credibility. They built a lot of, they built a huge fan base. And when I arrived, people knew of, I'd say a kernel of the audience knew of the videos.
Yeah.
But there was no, I think they had 15,000 fans on Instagram. There was 20,000 fans on Facebook. It wasn't like a platform. It was a YouTube channel that had like a website that didn't load on mobile. So we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. And, by the time I left, we had 300,000 Instagram fans and 1 million Facebook, whatever it was, just some comical number. And then my big push when I was there was to try to create a subscription model, which they've now gone and done in their own way. And because I believe that there's no way you can keep, once you grow to a certain size, people's willingness to work for you for just a day rate disappears. So there was a scalability issue in their films and a scalability issue in their whole website that I thought could be alleviated with a Netflix model. The problem is that there's like 5 other people who feel the same, and you've got Motor Trend on Demand, you've got all these different platforms, and so I think that the video focused car world is quite scattered from a media landscape perspective, and I also just think that accessing it is a little strange. Like I don't know how to get Motor Trend. I could probably look into it.
Yeah.
But like
it's not immediately obvious.
Like it's not Netflix level easy because no one's taken the time to invest in a platform that is of that quality. So everyone has these kind of clunky platforms that make it like a little awkward to use. And because they're all kind of doing it themselves, the budgets aren't quite there to do the big budget style, like, you know, the Grand Tour level production quality. So, or if there is, you burn out all your relationships because you're getting everyone to do it for free, basically.
Yeah,
so,
I've always wondered, as someone that makes content every now and then, takes photos, whatever, just shoots some video, you look at these high production videos coming out of whether it's Drive, Petrolicious, whatever. And I know from, like, let's just say YouTube revenue, you're never paying back that level of it. It's impossible. You're plowing tens of thousands of pounds in and you're getting nothing out.
Yeah.
Like how, I've always, let's say a platform like Petrolicious, like how on earth do you monetize? Like, how do you monetize that? How are you monetizing that platform?
When I was there, we were definitely breaking even. You know, we would get really great ad contracts to go and create content for brands. So it was much more of like a creative consultancy that had a digital platform.
Yeah.
It was a distribution platform that could also create the content in-house. So Porsche would come to us and say, we have X budget. We want to create X, Y, Z. What can you do? And we would go, we'll create X, Y, Z. And then we'll also distribute it to the right people. Because at that time, we had the audience. You know, we had 1 million people on YouTube. We had 400,000 on, we had 300,000 on Instagram. We had an ecosystem
to distribute these things on.
So it was a compelling advertising product, but an advertising editorial product and video product will never be worth geometric money like it used to be during broadcast days. Just not going to be the case. So yeah, it was a challenging business. When I decided to leave, it was not an easy decision because I really loved the business and I loved the people there and we had a great time, and I still love Petrolicious, and I think that it's such a fun thing. You know, it's
really cool.
It's just cool. And, you know, if it could run on vibes forever, I think it would, you know, but unfortunately when you decide to, like, either you run on vibes and you keep it tiny and sporadic, or you try to create like the illusion of being this multinational conglomerate of teams of people. But in reality, like, it was just a very small group of people working crazy hours trying to make it work. And then you start to look at what really great media businesses look like and you realize how many people are involved and that, you know, just the overhead and what that even looks like. And you start to go,
yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess it's more accurate to say that I was a media guy. I was a car guy by birth, a media guy by trade. And then during that process of Petrolicious, I rediscovered my love of photography. And because it was cheaper to pay myself nothing.
Yeah.
We didn't have, our production budget for the website was very low. And so I bought a camera. I bought a what was it? I guess it would have been an EOS 5D, like the first one.
Yeah.
I bought it on eBay for like $600 or something. And I bought the 1.8 50 that everyone uses, and, you know, and just started shooting again. And it was like, oh shit, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And then my friend Matt Jacobson, who is on the board at Leica, he pushed me to explore the Leica Q, which really kind of satisfied what I was looking for in a camera that would be compact, still full frame, could take an amazing image, and would really kind of, you know, as you know, the problem with the big SLR is that you look like a paparazzi anytime. And if you're around high net worth people who own these types of cars, or just people in general, people get a bit.
You've got big zoom lens on you.
People just they clam up and they you get treated like an outsider, because what I wanted to do at Petrolicious was I wanted you as the audience member to be able to put on my sunglasses, and see what I was seeing. You know, I had no ego about it. I didn't really give a shit about me as a character within that. It was more, I want access to things that no one else has access to. And I want to showcase them. Like, I want to go inside people's private collections and showcase them in a way that the person whose private collection feels that I've done it justice, but then the audience feels like they've seen something they shouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
And that became kind of my mantra over the 2-year period I was working there, of just going around the world at such a frequency that it was almost sickening, and allowing the Petrolicious audience, and then ultimately my audience as a subset of that, feel like they were me.
Yeah.
And because that, you know, there are much better car photographers out there in the world. You're one of them. Many of the friends that I have in the industry are technically much better photographers. What I think I did really well, and what I still do really well, is that I get you in a way that no one else thinks to do.
Yeah.
And,
There's always like, you're just in some cool place doing something cool. I'm like, yeah, that looks like fun.
But it's done to share that thing. It's not done to say, look at me, how cool it is that I'm there. I love being there, but it's done because I'm like, there's a great photographer called Slim Aarons who really went into, he captured an era, from the 1950s through the 1980s, 90s of that jet set era. And when you look at his books, you feel like you're there. He's not there, you're there.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of what I was trying to do. And what I still try to do is, I want you to feel, I wish you had been there.
Yeah.
Because every time you tell one of these stories, like of some crazy shoot you've done, like, oh, we rented out the Hungaro ring, blah, blah, blah. The crux of it is you should have been with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I love that idea of saying you should have been with me, but I wanted to take it like, well, why aren't you just with me?
Yeah. It's a really interesting way of looking at shooting stuff and I constantly have to remind myself, whether it's on a personal things that I'm doing anyway, to shoot like a round rather than you've got some image in your head and you go and create that one image and that's the boof moment. But it is really interesting to look back or to see the bigger picture and the team and the crew and whatever, the stupid stuff like you end up doing that is around this one perfect image or set of images that you've sort of gone out to create.
Yeah, and I feel like it justifies me being there.
Yeah.
If I just go somewhere and I capture an image that makes you jealous that I'm there, I haven't done my job. Like I've failed, radically. If I go somewhere and capture a moment in a scene so completely that you don't even feel that you needed to go there, because you've experienced it now, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
And that's much more well, and also likely you wouldn't be allowed there. It's not so interesting for me to go to Goodwood and take the same 50 pictures as everyone else because it's being done, and you can just go. I'd much rather go to the private track day of somebody that's never photographed their car collection before and showing you what it's like to actually drive these cars on. I just want to capture something that you wouldn't otherwise normally get to see, because I have this aversion to doing what anyone else is doing. And so if everyone tomorrow started copying exactly what I was doing, I would find something else to do because I would just be like, it's done. Like,
do you find it difficult now that so many people have Instagram accounts, not just like general people, but I mean owners. One is, I find it's good for access, but so many more people are taking pictures, posting things of these things you would never see. 10 years ago, these collections you would never see. The kid now has an Instagram account and posts this unbelievable stuff left, right, and center. Yeah.
Well, I think that we're all just getting one. Narcissism is a streak that runs through almost everybody. We all have little moments of like, oh, I'd like to be known for that. But two, I think that there's been a normalization with the medium to the point where people feel comfortable that their story is being told accurately. Yeah. But to me, it's grown quite boring just seeing someone with cool shit. Like
the full collection of Ferraris.
Like I really love like Alex Penfold's Instagram account because I'm like, this guy, he's the king of the car spotters. He's mastered the in situ shot of this car in the coolest location, the coolest thing. But I'm like, I want to know what girl that guy's fucking. I don't care that he owns that car. Like I want to see what like he eats for dinner. Like I'm fascinated by the whole interaction of that guy and that car, or whoever the person is that owns the car, whatever. I want to know the story.
The story, yeah.
Because once, like, if I just keep seeing this beautiful, beautiful in situ, like I just put one up. I don't know the story of this car. It's an amazing Rolls Royce that sits on the same street in Mayfair, and it's just a cool vibe. It's more of a vibe shot. But I'm like, I want to know like how many times that guy's gone bankrupt. Like I'm fascinated by these life stories because that's what interests me. I'm less intrigued by the act of ownership. I think ownership is quite boring. Like, I think any asshole can go buy anything.
I've recently, I don't know why this has stuck out for me. amongst all my friends and everyone I know, when someone buys a new car, everyone says congratulations. Now, I've always thought it's a bit of an odd thing to say to someone when they've bought a car, because it's not, the car is like the end point or part of an entire story.
Maybe they're congratulating the dealer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but like
wow,
the
you
actual,
got that price. Congratulations.
Congratulations for buying this car. Like, well, no, congratulations for working all your life to build something to then be able to buy the car or choose whatever. Like, it's the rest of the story behind just a singular item purchase.
Yeah, there's a lot of great people out there that do a lot of great things in cars. A lot of shitty people, obviously, because like any passion project or any passion industry, there's assholes who get involved for the wrong reasons, or in speculators or whatever. So, but the average person you'll meet at a Goodwood is just the most interesting person you could ever hope to meet. Like Dudley and Sally Mason Steeran, who live around the corner. These are like some of the first people that ever raced at Goodwood once they brought it back in the early 90s, and they just have a competition Daytona that they drive around the street. They drive
cool.
and they're in their 70s, and they chain smoke and like I think he owns like I think they own some sort of like a supermarket empire in the Lake District. Like these are fascinating people, and they. And their whole life, like the cars are just part of their whole life story. I love the life story. I get quite bored by, okay, rich guy or girl has nice toy. It's like, okay. I'm also just somebody who's very happy in what I have, and I don't feel compelled. Like I don't fetishize ownership.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I need to own things. Well,
do you think you went through a process of that and have come out the other end?
Yeah, because I've seen everything, and I've seen people that have everything. I've seen billionaires that have every toy you could ever want, but they have to schedule their fun 2 years in advance because of the lifestyle that allows them to have the toy. So I don't look at the toy as the reward. I look at the toy frequently as like a burden, in a way, because what the real thing they don't have is time. People that have these amazing collections, they have no time. And I can name a handful of people that have all the toys that I would want to have and actually the time to use them. Like I have one car over here, and I barely have time to use it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I spent all day yesterday driving this 930 turbo up at Sports Purpose in Bicester. And it's a fucking cool car. It's continental orange over like chocolate brown interior. And I'm totally in love with the car aesthetically as an object. And like, I found myself last night, like scheming, like, okay, I could sell some watches. I could like take a loan out. I was like, maybe I could split it with James, whatever. Like there was all these like, stupid things that ran through my head. And I'm like, I barely have time for like my perfectly restored, like total hot rod killer car that I love, that I've had my whole life. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with a second Porsche?
Yeah.
It doesn't even scratch a different itch. It's not like, okay, I could see you want to buy a Defender so you can go off-roading, and like, okay, there's some sort of logic there. It's literally the same body wider with a turbo.
It's mental how people's minds work. Like, but I could totally be like, oh yeah, I would have a Targa, and then I want a turbo, and then I want a GT3 because it's a different engine. Like you can rationalize away like any decision.
100%. But I'm telling you, once you do it, you know, what's a good analogy? It's like, you're like, yes, I'll eat half that pie. And then you eat half the pie and you're like, I didn't eat half the pie. And so I'm in this position now where I'm like, what I want is total freedom. Like I rent this boat with my roommate, Jamie. My life before lockdown, I lived on the road 300 days a year. I could travel with impunity. I could travel comfortably. I could work from anywhere. My team supports me globally. And I have a dream project with Porsche that I'm very in love with. So that was like me realizing at that moment, I have everything that I want. And another 911 or another car is actually not, it's actually going to detract from that.
Yeah.
Because what I'm really valuing is the freedom, and the freedom to go meet people and tell stories. Because that's what I really love doing. Owning cars is actually a pain in the ass.
Oh, massive pain in the ass.
Like it's going to cost me $300 a month to park it over here. It's going to cost me another $5,000 a year in tinkering costs and oil changes and to say nothing of insurance. And then well, then I have to worry about someone stealing it, and it's a fucking orange 930 turbo. Like someone's going to try to nick it. So, or maybe they wouldn't. It's so orange. If you nicked it, it's that obvious. Anyways, so I worked myself up because I really love the object, and then I realized like, no, owning the object is not what I want to be doing.
And you can totally appreciate these things just by going to see them. If you get to drive them for like 20 minutes, you're like, yeah, that was cool.
It's cool. I'm not sure that I'd love it in the city because it's not a very torquey engine, obviously, but on the motorway, it's very cool.
Yes. Do you think traveling a lot has made you more
absolutely
sort of efficient like this?
Yeah, 100%. Because you can only bring what fits in your suitcase.
Yeah.
So your interest in buying clothes, of buying stuff, when you have a fixed suitcase, you become allergic to it. You're like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Because it'll only slow me down. Like many people, when they go on vacation, they go, oh, I have to buy that. About the little souvenirs. I'm like, I want no souvenirs. I want no fucking magnets. I don't want anything to go on my fridge because my fridge is covered in, it's covered in whatever it is, particle board or something. I can't put magnets anywhere. Like I don't want any memorabilia. Yeah. The memorabilia is my photos, and it's me. Because I've allowed myself to be transformed by the journey, and that's what I take away. And I think at first, when I first started really traveling, I was like, oh shit, I got to buy, I want to buy this little mug, and I want all these like stupid things you think to buy actually are just the worst to own and to think about buying. It gives me anxiety. When you really start traveling, it's a bit like George Clooney in that Up in the Air movie. You ever see that movie?
I haven't seen that.
You just get so dialed in the way that you pack and the way that that what you need. And I know exactly how many shirts to bring for how many days. And I know that I can rewear this shirt twice without anyone noticing, all these stupid things. And you get like so ninja-like about it that you really, anything that detracts from that, you start to feel like a professional athlete. Not that I am one or have ever been one, but I can sympathize that if you're a professional athlete who's training and wants to be really good at the thing, and someone offers you like a beer at night, you're like, no, I can't. I don't want the beer because the beer will fuck me up tomorrow and it'll make training harder. It's a bit like that same mentality. It's like keep it away. I got my little system. Leave me alone. And I don't know.
I'm like that with my photography gear and stuff when I'm traveling. Like a good dose of traveling, like a 2-weeker or something. I come back and I'm like, okay, I didn't use that, or I could get away without using that, and next time I'm not doing it. Or I packed an extra jumper and no, that was just actually a pain the entire time I was away. Because whatever, your bag doesn't fit in the back of this stupid car you're driving. Exactly. So you were at Petrolicious.
Yep. And then I really, around the 2-year mark, I start getting antsy if I'm working for somebody. If I'm like working under somebody, I get bored. I don't know what it is. Like it's usually... it's about 2 years in each time. Yeah. And it's one of these things where I can't explain it other than it's like career ADD. But I knew deep down the solution for me was to go independent and start consulting on multiple projects, working for multiple people. And I was approached by 000 Magazine to do some consulting for them on their social media strategy. And then I kind of just ran the numbers, and I was like, you know what? I could probably get away with leaving Petrolicious. And there was like a brief conversation around what that would look like, and maybe and they offered me a very generous package to stay, but ultimately I just, unless I owned that business, I didn't want to stay. Which I encourage everyone to realize in their own career is like, decide if you're a forever employee or you're an owner, and I'm much more suited mentally to being someone with the flexibility of ownership than the rigid kind of structure of employment. And I just I was like, look, and I had enough like, emotional support from the people around me. And I said, okay, I'm leaving. And I think I retained Petrolicious as a client for a few months and went okay. And then I ultimately was approached by Porsche to start a new magazine for them, literally like a month and a half after I left.
How does that happen? Do you reach out? Were you in touch with them over this time?
A guy named Reinhard Patschke, who worked for an agency a Volkswagen Group agency in Hamburg. He reached out through a mutual friend who's a car dealer in Berlin, And then he reached out through Instagram, and then I got onto a phone call with my friend, my colleague and friend now, Dennis Keskin, who is now in charge of the global brand identity for Porsche. And yeah, it began a 16-month procurement process, which I didn't realize was going to take 16 months. So I told all my other clients to fuck off so I could focus on this, and then realized that was a mistake and essentially had to like bankroll myself on credit cards for a year and a half.
Yeah.
While picking up little gigs here and there as a photographer or whatever. But yeah, I'm really not I'm not a contract photographer. Like I'm not good at doing what I don't want to do. You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys can go out there and make a great shoot work, or, you know, do an incredible campaign for Mondeo, and it'll come out great.
Yeah.
God bless them. And these guys are professionals. I'm not one of them. I can, if something aligns with what I want to be doing anyways, I'll deliver. Yeah. But if it even is remotely not what I want to be doing, I'm like, I just can't be, I can't be bothered, because it just angers me in a way somehow, which is a total weakness. But it allows me to focus on what I actually really want to do and be good at that.
Yeah.
Which is tell stories and manage a small team of people that also love telling stories. So what came out of all these conversations with Porsche was Type 7, and Type 7 turned into one of the best projects of my life. And it's been just an amazing ride, working with a really great small team that I've built around me. We've got Nat Twiss, who is also a professional photographer, but is really great with social media. He's our managing editor, and so we also have Thomas Walk, who's down in Sydney. Thomas used to be with Deus Ex Machina, one of their creative guys. And he's our book developer and producer, and an incredibly talented shooter, and just a really great guy. And so, yeah, we've got this really awesome little network of people that we like working with. And then, of course, everyone else that we work with around the world, car photographers, architecture photographers, you name it, they all really, they support us in a way it's really cool.
It looks, I remember, how long have you been doing it for now?
We launched Christmas 2018 going into 19.
Yeah, I remember it came out and I was like, oh, what's this? What is this? And it's just cool Porsche content. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love Porsches, left, right, and center. And then just curated really nicely. Do you create is all the content created by you guys?
I'd say 70 to 80% is commissioned or done in-house.
Yeah.
So, you know, with photographers like you, we would say, hey, we need this done. They go and do it, and then it's done. We pay, I'd say, probably above average for the industry on an editorial scale. You know, we don't have Porsche budget for photography. Like a lot, sometimes we'll talk with a photographer who's used to working with car companies, and they'll quote us a day rate of $5,000 or something, and we're like, sorry. But, you know, compared to what Petrolicious or Classic Driver or these, you know, we pay more than they do. So we found this nice little niche. We license everything. The photographers retain ownership, which is, I think, a really honest way to do business. And and we've had nothing but great feedback from everybody. And it's created a lot of positive energy. I can't think of a single person we've worked with that has a negative thing to say. And it's just, you know, the purpose of the project is to bring in a new generation of people into Porsche. So obviously everyone on this podcast is a car guy, I'm assuming. Yeah. So it's not the demographic, to be frank, but it's, you know, we're trying to bring in people that otherwise wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable going to a car page.
How do you approach that then?
Well, we talk about things that aren't cars. You'll notice only 1 out of every 4 posts we do is about a car. But we talk about art, we talk about architecture. We really love architecture. And we talk about how they all play together. And, you know, we don't tell you that Porsche is cool or relevant. You know, we're not saying like, here's why Porsche is cool. Yeah. You know, here's why it's hip. You know, we don't say anything about, you know, why we love Porsche. We go and find people that have a passion, and we just talk about their passion. And so we make it self-evident, we think, that, you know, something special is happening there. And if you discover us through an architecture post, and a lot of our architecture posts outperform our car posts, and we have definitely a car focused audience, more so than not. But it's it's really impressive to watch how people that, you know, had no relationship with the car world whatsoever will come in and discover that they actually aesthetically are quite interested in Porsche. Yeah. And if there's some 21-year-old guy or girl who's never really been interested, he didn't even think about Porsche, who came in because he saw a cool building or someone forwarded him a post about an art installation, then we've done our job. Like, we've introduced someone to the Porsche world in a way that they now understand it at a core level without feeling like they weren't welcome.
Yeah.
A lot of car magazines, a lot of car, it's a little like you just walked into a Masonic temple and like they're having an Illuminati meeting and you don't have your pyramid on your head, like you feel like you're an outsider. And I always hated that. I always hated feeling like an outsider because I'm an outsider. Like, I'm not an expert. Like, I don't, like, even within the Porsche community, which I know probably the most about. I was up at Sports Purpose yesterday and they're talking about shit that I'm just like, that's above my pay grade. When they start getting into like all these different cams and all the, I'm just like, my eyes kind of roll over and I'm like, is it sweet or not? Like, I'm much
Can
more,
you put a summary over this?
I'm much more binary. I'm like, is this thing dope or is it not? And yeah, it's kind of my, I think a lot of people are actually secretly like that. Like, yes, you have the Anorak crowd for sure, but I always encourage the Anorak crowd to invite the non-Anorak crowd to hang out, because how else do you become Anorak?
Yeah.
If you don't start out,
And I think like those people that put pure factual technical stuff above everything else. And like, if someone comes to me and you can tell straight away, like I'm so normally like, are you a car guy? Are you not a car guy? And then like, do you know what that is? If they say like a Lambo, you're like, okay, you don't know what model. I know how to pitch it. But people get so technical on things and you can just, like you said, you just glaze over. You're just like, what the hell are you talking about? But if that person is, one of the best experience I've had recently was Le Mans Classic last year, walking around with Jara's dad.
Yes.
You met his dad. And he's been a mechanic forever.
Yeah.
Working on all these cool cars. We just walked around the pits and he'd just provide like an interesting nugget. Yeah. Not go crazy, not anything, not all of it. Just be like, this car has a fixed rear axle and a chain drive, and that means it drifts everywhere. You're like, what the hell? This is from like the 30s or something.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how it should be. I think the majority of car guys probably are that way. It's just that every once in a while you meet somebody that's just sort of like, well, you don't know that, so we can't be friends. And you're like, okay,
we're not friends. We were never going to be friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. I like how I think you curate is, I guess it's the right word. Create like a nice Instagram from like you said, you have architect pictures and all this sort of stuff. So I look at my own Instagram and it kind of annoys me that it's all cars. Yeah. And I, for a long time, wanted it to not just be cars. And you could just turn around and be like, well, post other stuff, mate. This is how this thing works. But I think loads of people get trapped into I'm a car thing. I've just got to post cars. And eventually that gets boring.
Yeah, really fucking boring. No, look, we all have other interests, but if we don't talk about them, how do we know,
Yeah.
And like, I love boats. I love books. I love food. I love travel. I love all these things. I love women. I love everything. So it's like, if you don't share and talk about all these things, how do you build the relationships that are interesting,
Yeah. It's like all my closest friends, we talk about all sorts of rubbish, all sorts of stuff, like, and everyone appreciates different things. And that is just what makes life interesting. With the magazine, where have you been to? You must have been to some cool places, where's been some particularly interesting things or people you've met along the way?
Man. I love Bangkok. Bangkok's really cool. Really great car community there. I love Tokyo. I was supposed to live in Tokyo all last month. Rented a house for the whole month and was going to move my team over there. So we don't have an office, Type 7. But what we do is every few months we'll rent to a big apartment somewhere and just go move it.
That's cool.
And so we all just move there and work together, which creates like a really great environment, I think, and pushes us to kind of understand a new culture in a way that reflects in our work very positively. So yeah, Japan's just mind blowing. I love Asia. I love the way it's such a respect based culture. It's really special. And every time I leave Japan, I feel like my faith in humanity is restored in a way, because everyone is just so focused on respect and focused on passion. And yeah, I lived in California for 2 years. I love California. I love Californian weather. I love Californian roads. I love Californian girls. I love all of it. What else do I love? I love New York. It's totally different energy to any other city on earth. It's never stopping. I could go on and on. I love everywhere, because if by the time I've chosen to go there, it's because I really want to be there.
Yeah.
So you won't hear me be like, "Oh, I hate Singapore." It's like, no, like it's never going to be. It's just not part of my vocabulary.
Yeah, and if you're going to shoot some stuff, you invariably you get to drop into it immediately.
Yes, and because of the Instagram thing, and because of the way I interact with people on Instagram, I get to meet the most interesting people in that region typically, because, if I post that I'm in Bangkok, I end up meeting people that like the same things that I do. And by the nature of liking the same things I do, it means you're doing something pretty interesting there.
Yeah.
Like especially in these countries where you have to be comically wealthy to even own a car, that person has a pretty interesting life story if they own like 5 Porsches in a place with 400% tax.
Yeah.
So it's like, you meet these people all the time, and they're just, and they're the coolest, the most interesting people.
Yeah. You've got to really like one brand to, if it's 400% tax, to buy a similar model.
Oh yeah.
What are the challenges with, because this is an online, it's not only an online only presence, is it?
No, we do. Your microphone stand is on our volume 1.
Nice.
We do an annual, instead of a magazine, we do an annual printed volume that's hardbound, so that it's collectible. So it kind of it's part of your library. We price it accordingly. It's priced, I think, fairly for what you get. The production.
How many are you making?
We've sold 3,000 copies of Volume 1, and then we'll do 3,000 of Volume 2, and then we can always do reprints of both depending on what we end up needing to do. But yeah, that's been the best, because it allows people to touch what our brand is about. It's not just an Instagram; it has real physical DNA, which I love. And I don't know, I love books. So.
Yeah, books. There's something about printed stuff, and
it's special. In
your hands.
It's a very cool thing.
Yeah, I think you go through like an Instagram feed, and it's like these tiny little squares that are like that size, and it just gets a bit over. Well, I normally wrap these up with 5 questions. You ready?
Shoot.
Do you have a most memorable driving trip or journey?
Oh, most memorable driving trip. I drove out to the services the other day during lockdown. That was really that was fucking epic. It felt like the never ending. It was just wow. It was like driving. Oh wow. It's amazing how with just like 6-8 weeks of not moving, you're like, the stupidest little journey feels like this epic quest.
Yeah. It's funny that like how it's just like, I just want to go for a drive. I don't care where it is, what it's in. Just get in a car.
Yeah, I drove the Napoleonic route from
what was it, Grenoble down?
Yeah, somewhere around there. We started off some beautiful winery with a bunch of good friends. I was in a Triumph TR2 and my girlfriend at the time, and we drove all the way to the Monaco Historic Grand Prix, and that was a really memorable journey. The car was shit, but it was like epically shit.
Yeah,
like in a good way. And just trying to muscle it through all those windy roads was quite fun. The Bernina Gran Turismo in St. Moritz, doing all the passes around St. Moritz, I really love. They're very special.
Do you have what's your favorite, if you had to pick 3 events for the year, what would be your top 3 events? And I know some events are not every year, but
definitely the Bernina Gran Turismo, just because there's nothing else like it. It's they shut down the Bernina Pass, and it's just all the best cars you'd see at Goodwood racing at top speed up it.
That sounds badass.
Pretty spectacular to see and very intimate. Really, really cool. What else? Frankly, I've been enjoying not having to go to any events. It sounds sacrilege to say. Goodwood's incredible. I think if you haven't been to Goodwood, I've now been going for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I've gone to every event for like 4 or 5 years, except for obviously this one now. And to put it as one of the 3 is incorrect, because I think I'd rather highlight a few others. But to say if you haven't been to a Goodwood, it's just the most special thing. And I remember that's really when it clicked for me, when I saw how special this universe was. When I think I went to a festival speed, and I was just like, whoa, okay, this is a thing.
It's amazing. And I know you've been to a few now, or a lot now, and I'm the same, and they start to get pretty samey, but it is an amazing place.
Yeah, I think it's just so special, and what that family does for the motorsport world and for the car world in general, and they do it almost thanklessly. You know, they don't do it. I'm sure they make money at it, but it's not really done for the money. It's done to like be done because it needs to be done, and I think that's just the coolest. And I think that I'm very so thankful to have gotten to know their family and gotten to know why they do what they do. And I have to say, it's done for all the right reasons, and it's really reflected in everyone you speak to that works there, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is a very special thing. So that's just kind of like you have to do one of if you've never been, you got to do it. What's another one I really enjoy? The Quail, put on by the Kadori family at the during Monterey Car Week.
Yeah.
As far as static events go, that's probably got to be the best one in the world.
Yeah.
It's just the most fun with the most people you want to be around, and you can access everybody. It's unpretentious. It's the antithesis of the Pebble Beach Car Week, of the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. It's just fun, and Villa d'Este is really beautiful. It's the most beautiful place on earth, and I go to the hotel as often as I can because it's truly, there's nowhere else like it. But in terms of just like all out fun experience, the Quail Motorsports Gathering is just great. You just get access to everybody in a way. It's exclusive to a degree, but it's the scale makes it so that it's less exclusive than a Villa d'Este, but it's just spectacular. And I always get to go with it with a good group of friends, and it's just a really special event. But what's another one that I'm going to be a judge of? This little one in Sardinia this summer in July called the Polto Quatu Classic, which is quite funny. It's primarily like Fiat Spiagginas.
Yeah.
It's the silliest, goofiest event, but Sardinia is the most magical place on earth. And so I'll if all goes to plan, I'll be driving down there in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And I'll spend the summer there, hopefully. And yeah, that's a really fun little event put on by this guy named Simone Bertolero. And Simone, he is the proprietor of this company called Auto Classic Italy. He owns these incredibly cool. He owns like the Fiat Principessa, the record speed record car, the super aerodynamic looking thing, and it's just fun and silly and Italian, and it doesn't take itself seriously. And like I love Villa d'Este for what it is, and all these events like that. But it's quite silly. And then I organized an event outside of Villa d'Este with my friend Guglielmo Miani from Laurus Miani, this Italian fashion brand called Fuori Concorso. And Fuori Concorso is like a very unpretentious version of Villa d'Este, but done in a very cool way. And we launched my first book there on all the Continental Bentleys that I photographed a year or two ago. And so, yeah, I love unpretentious events. I love events where everyone feels like they're welcome and having fun. Like Villa d'Este is really spectacular, but it is very like, oh, sorry, you don't have the right badge. So sorry. Oh, God. Goodwood has an air of that, but that's only because the crowd is so
Goodwood's got worse. Yeah.
But you can still go with a general admission ticket and be like, fuck, this is cool. Yeah. But like Villa d'Este, it's like, sorry, sir, you don't have the right ticket. Monaco Historic Grand Prix is fantastic. I've never done Le Mans Classic. I was hoping to do that this summer, but
that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Right, next question. 5-car garage, unlimited value.
No, I've got my 1-car garage. I love my 911.
You wouldn't. If someone said you've
5-car
would
drive me insane. Because I'm never around. I just like. Talk to any of my friends or any of your friends that have all these cars. Owning 5 cars is a logistical nightmare. And then just finding the time in your day to go use them all. The one person I know who does this very well is Neil Clifford, who owns Kurt Geiger. He lives north of the city here, and he has maybe 5-10 cars up there. But each car is just funky, weird, goofy for its own reason. And he's passionately invested in enjoying each and every one of them every day. I see it constantly, just loving it. I guess I still got to scratch the Defender itch at some point. I need to own some sort of truck. that'll probably be the next thing I buy. I really want to own this, just to own the object, that this Continental Orange 930 turbo. Yeah,
okay, so you've got your old 911, you've got a Defender, you've got a 930 turbo.
Well, I have a 3-car garage already. Back in the States, I have a 928 GT and a 944 turbo as well.
Oh, cool.
So I've got 3 cars as it is. 2 of them I can't drive physically because I'm not in the States.
Yeah.
1 car I barely have the time to drive as it is. So I'm like, another 4 on top of that. I'm like,
can't fit it all in. Fair enough. Well, then my next question is going to be quite easy. If you could only drive 1 car for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Mine's perfect. It's got a 3.2, it's a 76S 3.2, perfect power to weight ratio, all the torque you'd ever want. It'll do 120 comfortably. It just screams. It's been wrenched on by all the best people. The car got in a prang 2 summers ago, or 3 summers ago, and it's now it was restored by Roof in Pfaffenhausen, and then I recently, I had the engine redone in LA by Marco Geraci, who's a great friend. And then I also had, I have Maxted Page do the gearbox just this past winter, and they do all of the suspension setup and everything now. I have the KW suspension on there.
That made quite a difference, changing the suspension.
Well, yeah, when you had 200,000 miles on the original Bilstein. So it's amazing when it goes from none to some.
Yeah. Right. What do you think is undervalued at the moment, car-wise?
I really like to own a 996 turbo at some point as well.
So much like punch for your pound on that car.
I've always liked the 996. The first like real screamy experience in a fast car was a 996 C4 Cabriolet that my dad's best friend let him borrow for the weekend, and I remember just flying up a hill near my parents' house with the top down and just screaming like I was on a roller coaster. I was like, this is cool. And I still think the car's cool. And I never thought it was uncool. And I just never really understood the hate that it got, because it's just cool. I've always liked that. I think it also has to do with my love for the GT1 headlights.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always like your own little GT1. It was cool. So I've delighted to see them increasing in value, or respective of what I think they deserve. But yeah, would love to own that. Would also really love to own a. I could also very happily own a 996 Targa. I think the Targa 4S would be a cool car. I love that glass. I think it's a very elegant design.
I do like Targas. Ever since the new 992 Targa came out the other day, I've just looked at them and gone like, I know from a driving point of view, Targa is so much heavier in the wrong place, but they look great.
Yeah. Well, that was what's great about the 996 Targa is that it's not that much heavier, because they didn't really structurally add so much. Like the new one, it has to have all this gear to lift up that huge pane of glass in an articulated way and then move. It's fucking wild how they engineered it. I don't know how they did it. But like the 996 one, it's a sliding, it's a big sunroof.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you don't lose the bars on the side. So you maintain the roof line. I don't know. I think it's a cool looking car.
Yeah. They're cool things. Right. Last question. What's the most interesting car to you at the moment? What are you Googling? What are you looking at? What are you looking for?
Toyota made a version of the Hummer.
Did they?
Yeah. What was the name of it? I was just looking at this the other day. I was obsessed with this thing. It's like a V12 diesel.
What's it called? Do you know any idea what it's called?
Let me see.
Oh, what? What the hell? Toyota Mega Cruiser.
Yeah, the Mega Cruiser. This is the coolest car ever made.
What? Okay, people need to Google this. It literally looks like a Hummer, but it's made by Toyota.
Oh, it's the coolest.
This is mad. This looks like some sort of toy car.
Very, very cool thing.
When did they make that?
It was made for the Tokyo Fire Department.
Fair enough.
It's a utility, and then they also, people wanted them, so they made them.
This is in like the 80s or something.
I think so, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Maybe early 90s.
I did not know that existed. I'm totally going to go and share this picture with some friends.
Epic. Very cool thing.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for coming by.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Very cool.
Sweet.